Hey everyone, this is lesson 9-2, and today we're going to be taking what we learned yesterday, the basics of what a fraction is, what are the names of its parts, and what are some examples, and we're going to be looking at a story problem to be able to solve a fraction. And so I've written our essential question. I'll read it to you. It's up here in pink, and the question asks you is, how can you write a fraction to name a part of a whole? And so first of all, let's think back to our definition of what is a fraction. Do you remember what it was? A fraction is a part of a whole. And so when we're looking at a fraction, we're looking at whole numbers, but when we're looking at a fraction, we're looking at part of that number. And so first, let's look at a problem to get our minds to thinking about what fraction this would be recognizing, be able to name a part of a fraction. So here's a word problem. I'll let you read it. I'll read it aloud to you. Pat made a garden in the shape of a rectangle and divided it into 6 same-sized pieces. She planted flowers on 4 of the pieces. Draw a picture of what Pat's garden might have looked like. Now, before we get to that, let's review a little bit parts of a fraction. So this was a fraction we looked at yesterday. This fraction had a 1 and then on top and a 2 on the bottom. Do you remember what the name of the number on top is called? What's it called? It's called a numerator. If you said numerator, you're right. And the number on the bottom is the what? If you said denominator, you were correct. Now, each one of these numbers, these digits of a fraction, they have a purpose. And the number on the bottom, in this case, this is the number 2 that we looked at yesterday. This tells how many equal parts that the fraction is divided into. And the number on top tells us how many are counted, or if we're shading in a picture, how many of those parts are shaded. So we have number of total parts and then how many are shaded. And so we also named this fraction. This is an example of a fraction we had yesterday. How do you say this fraction? You have a number on top, you have a number on bottom. In this case, you say the fraction 1/2. If you said 1/2, you're correct. So this fraction is how you say is 1/2. So of course we have the numerator on top, we have the denominator on bottom. The denominator tells us how many parts, the numerator tells us how many parts we're counting. So let's go back to our word problem. And so if we're looking at our word problem, we're looking to see how can we name a fraction in this word problem. So let's look at this one. Pat made a garden in the shape of a rectangle and divided it into 6 same-sized pieces. She planted flowers on 4 of the pieces. Draw a picture of what Pat's garden might have looked like. So let's think about this for a minute. Let's do a different thing. Like yesterday we had a square. Now let's do a square again. Let's do a square. Here's a square or a rectangle. Okay? And so now let's go back to our problem, because we always want to continue going back to our problem. Make sure we are doing what we need to have. So here is our one whole. We're looking at a fraction. A fraction is a part of a whole. So here is our whole. So we got to figure out how much does she cover it with flowers. So now we got to figure out our top number and our bottom number. We want to start with our bottom number. How many parts do we need to divide this into? So let's see how many parts of her garden did she make. Pat made a garden in the shape of a rectangle, what I got right here, and divided it into 6 same-sized pieces. Is that what we're going to do? Are we going to do 6 same-sized pieces? You're right, we are. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's just pretend that's what her garden looks like. That's about right. That's pretty close. So I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's her garden. Let me make sure it's right. She made a garden in the shape of a rectangle and divided it into 6 same-sized pieces. Okay? Is that right? Okay. She planted flowers on 4 of the pieces. So if she's planting flowers, she's going to plant flowers on this piece, this piece. Am I done? Do I need any more? If you said I need 2 more, I do. I need 3 and 4 pieces. So she planted flowers on 4 of the pieces. Draw a picture of what Pat's garden might have looked like. So with that, does this fit her garden? 6 total pieces, 4 covered. This is what it might have looked like. It could have looked like some other things, but this is what's going to look like. So now let's go back to our fraction to see what would this fraction look like. Here's our picture, but what would be the fraction? So let's go to our denominator. Let's go back to our number, our denominator. Our denominator, I erased a little bit of it, tells us how many or number of equal parts. And this tells us number of shaded parts. Okay? Number of shaded parts. So what number is going to go down here at the bottom? Our denominator, number of equal parts. How many total equal parts do we have? You have a number? If you said 6, you're right. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 total parts. So now looking at my numerator, how many of those parts are shaded? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 out of those 6 are shaded. So now let's talk about how we say this fraction. We have 4 shaded out of a total of 6. So we say this 4/6. Put a THS on the end of it. 4/6 is how you would say this fraction. This is what it's going to look like. So this matches our, if I can get it side by side, this matches our problem. So how can you write a fraction to name a part of a whole? Here is how we write a fraction to name a part of a whole. Because see, it's only part of it. Not all of it's covered, just part of it. And so this represents a fraction.